All right. Hey, you guys, we are back today to learn a little bit more about westward expansion. So let's talk a little bit about what we already know. We already know we've got a lot of things that have happened. I'm going to pull up here a little timeline that I made to kind of help get us oriented to time. Okay, so we know way back here, this was our colonial period, right? Jamestown, Plymouth, the 13 colonies being established. And then we launched into the Revolutionary War, where we got our freedom from Britain. Then we formed our Constitution, elected our first president, George Washington, in 1789. And then this is what we moved into yesterday. We talked about the Louisiana Purchase that Thomas Jefferson made in 1803 that just about doubled the size of the United States. And we bought that from France. And then he asked the explorers Lewis and Clark to go on their big expedition in order to achieve certain goals for the United States. And a lot of those had to do, basically the Lewis and Clark expedition, if you remember from yesterday, lasted from about 1803 to 1806. And they had some goals that they were asked to do. So one of the big things was they were asked to create maps as they traveled, right? This was land that nobody had mapped. We didn't know what was out there. And it was very important to President Jefferson that we explore this area and know what we bought and what we can do with it. He really wanted to know about resources, so they kept really detailed journals talking about, the kinds of plants and animals, the native life that they came across. Of course, they were mapping along the way. They kept detailed information about the Native American tribes that they came across. They interacted a lot positively with a lot of Native American tribes, and then other Native American tribes weren't as happy to see them. One of the biggest kind of goal, though, that President Jefferson set out for them, though, was he really wanted them to find a water route from the east to the west. So I'm going to jump over here to my map. So if we look here, if this is the United States at this point, and here's our Louisiana Purchase territory, we know we have a water route from north to south, that Mississippi River, right? We already know from our talks yesterday about why it was so important to preserve that access on the Mississippi River, because that was transportation and they could trade. It was important for their economic well-being. But President Jefferson wanted to know, was there a route to go from this side to this side? Because the same thing could be true, right? It would be great for transportation and trade to boost our economic standing. So that was a big, giant goal for them. See if you can find a water route. Well, we know now there is not a water route. There is not a one river or one easy way to go from this side of the country to this side of the country. So, of course, we figured out alternate ways of doing that later. But that was kind of their big, giant goal. Now, as they explored, and they got gained all this information that they were able to share back. This is pretty cool. I found this on YouTube. Let me show you this real quick. It's an animated map that shows their travels, starting in St. Louis. And it shows how they traveled. You can see they traveled alongside a river. They were trying to find that water route. Of course, there wasn't one water route that would work. And then you can see they kind of split up for a while to explore, and then they came back together. And you can see kind of the time span. And then this is where it is kind of filling in to show you what the United States looks like today. So what states that would have been traveling over. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. So as Lewis and Clark shared their information about what they had discovered, then newspapers started publishing reports about, oh my goodness, the wonderful things out in the West. So there were a lot of people out there in those cities to the east. For various reasons, they decided they wanted to try something new. There were you're going to explore today, lots of motivations for leaving. Some of them might be economic, money related. Some of them might be related to religion. Some of them might be related to just different kinds of opportunities they were looking for. A lot of them had to do with information that they were being given at the time that may or may not have turned out to be true. So you're going to explore a lot of that today. But there's a really big concept you're going to read about today that is shown in this painting. It's called Manifest Destiny. And I'm not going to go into detail right now about what it is because I want you to read and do some discovering first. And then tomorrow we'll come back and talk about it some more. But this was a painting by the artist John Gast, and it's called American Progress. And part of your lesson today is going to be doing some observations about this painting. What do you notice in it? What can you kind of tell about the artist's, maybe his opinions or a theme he was trying to get across in the painting? So that will be an interesting part of your lesson today, I think. So as you go forward, today you're going to dive back into your Nearpod lesson and work your way through it. You will read about motivations for moving for the settlers. You'll read about the impact it had on the Native Americans. We're going to start diving into that a little bit, and we will get deeper into that in another lesson. You're going to do a little thinking for yourself about this painting. What does it mean to you? And then you're going to create a little Google Jamboard talking about kind of some pros and cons from the different perspectives, the perspective of the settlers and the perspective of the Native Americans. And then tomorrow we'll come back together and we'll talk more about what you discovered along the way. So I hope you're finding this interesting. I think this part of history is really kind of fascinating. There's lots of different perspectives to be able to look at the events from. If you are stuck, make sure you're Zooming with your teacher and so we can talk it out, or if you just have questions or concerns, let us know because we're here for you, okay? We will see you tomorrow. Enjoy your lesson today.